All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. Welcome back. We're here with some more NFL DFS picks and lineup advice this time for the single game showdown slate. Monday Night Football, Week 15, Seattle Seahawks, Philadelphia Eagles. Welcome, I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy Single Game $1 Million Winner. Yes, this is a live Q&A breaking down tonight's slate. Fortunately, we waited as long as we did because we have some interesting pregame news to get to. In this video, we'll talk about the injuries that impact the slate, low risk lineup construction tips, as well as strategies for the biggest contests and the biggest prizes that DraftKings and FanDuel have to offer tonight. A little bit jet lagged, got back early this morning. That's the big reason we didn't do the video like we normally do, coming back from the FFWC. But we're here to talk about this slate. If you have questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. I'll be here probably until 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 30 minutes or so. That gives us enough time to go with our normal breakdown and answer any questions that you may have. So let's start with the injuries and the inactives. One of the nice things about doing the live stream before the game, we get the inactives report. Let's start with Seattle. So Geno Smith, we get the report this morning from Ian Rappaport, who is hit or miss sometimes when he is the only one reporting something. So when Schefter didn't report anything this morning, but Ian Rappaport was the only one reporting, you had to take it with a grain of salt. He reported that Geno Smith was facing an uphill battle to play tonight. It was expected that Drew Lock would draw the start. However, just maybe 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago, we get news that Geno Smith will be active. Everyone's like, great, Geno Smith is going to start. He's healthy. Not so fast, because the report maybe a minute or so ago is that just because he's active may not mean he's going to start. It could be Drew Lock. So we'll monitor this for the next, hour or so. I ask for your help. I'm not going to be able to check this while we are live. So if you see a concrete report from a trusted reporter that Geno is starting or Lock is starting, please throw it in the chat and let me know. The nice thing about it is, if you look on DraftKings and you're building, Lock is $9,200, Geno Smith is $9,400. So not a massive difference in how you build your lineups. So if you've already put Lock into your lineups, most builds you can just do the upgrade to Geno Smith. On FanDuel, they're the exact same price at $13K, so that makes it extremely nice. Now, the one issue would be, obviously, Geno starts, can't finish, Lock takes his place. Lock starts, is ineffective, and they decide to replace him with Geno. Ideally, Geno just starts, and we can play Geno Smith. It does cause a little concern, but I would trust whoever starts. Ownership will be interesting. I imagine whoever starts will see a tick down than what we normally would expect than if there were no news surrounding the situation. Let's see. So we got some more comments in the chat. Questions. Lone Wolf, Patrick, Dizzy, Drew, Dante. What's up? So yeah, so we got where Geno's going to play. We have word he's going to be active, not necessarily going to play. So again, if you guys can monitor the reports, monitor Twitter, let me know. Also on Seattle, some key defensive injuries. Strong safety Jamal Adams will be out. Devon Witherspoon, one of their corners, who is their primary nickel corner, will be out as well. Now, you could argue, based on his play, that Jamal Adams, his absence is addition by subtraction. Sure. But anytime you have two members of your secondary out, even if one player has been playing that well, there is some continuity issues, more potential for busted coverages. We've seen it time and time again throughout the NFL. So that's a bump to the Eagles' passing game tonight with Devon Witherspoon out and Jamal Adams out. Now on the Eagles side, there was some uncertainty around Jalen Hurts. Was added to the injury report with an illness, questionable. Multiple reports that he flew to the stadium separately from the team as to not infect anyone else. He feels good enough to play. He will start tonight, so play Jalen Hurts as if he normally would. But they have some defensive injuries themselves. Middle linebacker Zach Cunningham is out. Shaq Leonard, formerly the Colts, he will get a more every down role like he hoped for since he signed with the Eagles and was let go by the Colts. Now, I'm as big a fan of Shaq Leonard as any, but there's a reason the Colts let him go. He's not the player he used to be, so being thrust into a full-time role tonight, we'll see how that goes. If he is not Shaq Leonard of old or not up for a full-time role, that obviously helps Seattle's offense a little bit, particularly the tight ends and the running backs. And then Darius Slay, starting corner, is going to be out. That's obviously a boost to Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, the outside corners. A rookie will be starting in his place. Now, it's funny because most of the time when we get questions about wide receiver versus cornerback matchups, for some reason Darius Slay seems to be the corner that most people bring up. So while we normally say it doesn't matter if they're facing Slay or not facing Slay. It does matter if they're facing Slay's backup instead of Slay. So give a little boost in the projections to Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf tonight. And the Eagles are also without starting guard Cam Jurgens. So they have not been as effective when he's been out of the lineup. So maybe a small downgrade to the Eagles offense as well. All right, let's talk about low risk lineup constructions. Actually, before that, let's talk about the weather just briefly. Rain in the forecast, hit or miss. It doesn't look like much wind. I'm not building as if the weather will impact the slate that much. Let's see if we get any pregame reports about a complete downpour of rain. Maybe a little more run action if that's the case. I wouldn't let it affect, unlike Atlanta and Carolina yesterday, wouldn't let it impact too much. So now, just really quickly on that note, the total has dropped about 3 points since the odds opened, but I have a feeling that is more correlated to the quarterback uncertainty on both sides rather than the weather. So again, just take that for what it is. So low risk, 50-50s, double ups, head-to-heads, where we just try to maximize our scoring floor, try to lock up all the scoring opportunities, play the obvious values. Neither one of those strategies are going to work really well tonight. Excuse me on the the water today. Typically only take 1 or 2 sips during these videos, but coming back from Arizona, I need a lot more water than that. Because we have split backfields on both sides. So yes, DeAndre Swift is going to handle most of the work compared to Kenneth Gainwell on the Eagles side. However, the issue is his touchdown equity is so low with Jalen Hurts stealing all the touchdowns around the goal line. That doesn't really make Swift a safe, low-risk play, especially at his price tag. And then you look at Seattle side, Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet splitting work. You don't really want to play split workload running backs. Kenneth Walker more likely to score a touchdown, sure, but he's not priced as if he's a super safe play at 7,800. Yeah, it's a little cheap, but low-risk contest, not so sure. Instead, because if we did play those guys, we would be fading funnel receivers like A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, like Tyler Lockett, and DK Metcalf. It makes a tough overall slate. We don't have any mispriced players at the bottom. Under the kickers and defenses, no one is going to be 30, 40, 50% in the low-risk contest. Maybe Colby Parkinson. He's not going to be that highly in most contests, but in 50-50s double-ups, maybe. Ran 16 routes last week at $200, so he's a cheap guy that you could use to fill in. But no obvious plays that you have to play. Instead, what you could do for low-risk contests as your core plays tonight, Jalen Hurts, whoever's starting that quarterback for Seattle. And again, if you guys know, let me know if you see any reports as we're live. So Geno Smith. And instead, I like Tyler Lockett, who's underpriced at $6,600. Feels like he has a safer floor and higher ceiling than Kenneth Walker tonight, $6,600. A.J. Brown, high floor, high ceiling play at receiver. $5,500 left per player. Now, if Drew Lock starts, you could play maybe Smith and Jigba, or you could play kicker defense here in the middle. I think you have to start Hurts at your captain spot, though, in low-risk contests, and then play the Seattle quarterback and whoever fits in around them. Really tough low-risk slate overall. And the same for FanDuel. If we go over to FanDuel, yes, obviously you're playing Hurts at MVP in low-risk contests. Geno or Lock, they're both the same price. Let's go with Geno since he is active. And then Walker, 11K is a little more palatable over here. Swift, 12K, still no touchdown equity, even more important on FanDuel. Just look at Swift's game logs really quickly, right? Floors of 3 points is not a guy that's super safe for low-risk contests. So if we played Walker or Lockett, 11K and 10K, Jackson Smith and Jigba will be popular in all contest types over here at just 8K. Then you have 11,000 per player. You could play Lockett. You could play one of the kickers or defense, Zach Charbonnet. This is probably the way to go. Now, you could play A.J. Brown instead. What does this look like? 6,500, not great. Yeah, overall, really tough low-risk slate. So I think tonight, especially with the uncertainty in the quarterback situation, if you haven't already registered your contest, I would stick to high-risk allocations tonight. GPPs, satellites, leagues, more high-risk payouts than playing any low-risk payouts. Let's see. So, yeah, a lot of people saying Geno is in. Yeah, we understand Geno is in. But we don't know for sure that he's going to start based on reports. He is active, yes. We have not gotten concrete reports that he's going to start because Sean Mannion, their third quarterback who they elevated, is also active. So if you guys see a concrete report that Geno is starting, please let me know. Let's see here. All right, let's look through the chat really quickly before we get to high-risk strategies for tonight. How do you feel about single entry captain? Yeah, so just briefly, Hurts is going to be the most popular captain MVP on both sites. We have him above 50% on FanDuel, above 25% on DraftKings. So yeah, obviously that's a lot of ownership, but it is deserving for a player of his caliber. If you're playing multiple lineups, I really like mixing in the receivers, maybe the running backs, and hoping to get a ceiling game from them. Playing Lockett, Metcalf, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, guys like that at your captain spots. The other problem with Hurts today is that there aren't very many good low-owned plays. So if we go to DraftKings and you play Jalen Hurts as your captain in any contest type, any size GPP, we look, and if we look at the low-owned plays, we have Kenneth Gainwell. These are guys we identify as less than 20% projected ownership. Kenneth Gainwell, $4,400, a little bit overpriced for his secondary role in this offense. The defenses will be under 20% more than likely. Those are probably your best low-owned plays today, given the weather, given Geno's injury situation, given Hurts's recent performance, their missing offensive linemen. Lots of ways, especially if this game goes under the total, that the defenses are optimal tonight. And at low ownership, they're probably the best leverage plays on the board. Eagles more so than the Seahawks, but the Seahawks at $3,400. Just an incredible leverage play tonight. Kickers will hover around that 20% mark. Other than that, Noah Fant, we expect over 20%. You have the Eagles wide receiver 3 in Quez Watkins at $800. But again, how many routes is he going to run? 10 to 15. Maybe he catches a long bomb. That's more of a large field, high risk play. Then you have other guys down here. No one stands out as, wow, this is a great low-owned option outside the defenses. So for that reason, if we're looking to get different with Hurts captains, it's not like a Mahomes captain. It's not like a Josh Allen captain where we have a multitude of low-owned players to pair with him. We don't really have that tonight. So it makes it difficult in single entry and even large field to go heavy on Jalen Hurts at captain or MVP without fear of being duplicated heavily. And so Scott's asking about high-risk plays. No, we're talking about that right now. Dante says, if Locke starts, is there a chance he's benched? My thoughts are, if Geno could play, he'd just be starting. Yeah, I agree. I don't know why he would be active and not start. I'm not coaching the team, so not really sure. But I think there is a chance, right? Like, the playoffs are on the line. If they don't feel he's necessarily healthy enough to start, but Drew Lock starts, implodes, they're like, fuck it, Geno, go in, let's play, let's save the season. So I think it is a possibility. Likely, probably not, but it is a possibility. Evol says, D Swift at captain. Go Bills. Those two don't go hand in hand, but nonetheless. So Swift, obviously, so Seattle, not the best defending the running back position for fantasy football purposes. But it's just really hard to picture a situation where Swift is the highest scoring player on the slate. His best game came all the way back in week 2 in Minnesota when Cam Jordan was in the lineup, when they fed him the ball, when Minnesota couldn't stop a nosebleed. Could it happen again tonight? Maybe. But we haven't projected for sub 10% capped ownership, so that would be the only reason. And that's the other reason I like rotating the non-Hurts captain and MVPs tonight. Almost all of them are going to be under 20% owned. It allows you to be less different. There's a less need to be different in your flex spots. Swift will qualify. If you feel like there's a game situation where Swift is the optimal captain, you can build around it. I'm not sure I would do it, but I think you can include him in large field captain player pools. Not necessarily small field for me. Hop says Roto World is saying Geno is starting. If anyone has a confirmation of that, please let me know for sure. Not to say Hops that you're wrong or Roto World is wrong. Just hoping for a secondary confirmation as I'm doing this live here on stream. Let's see. Michael says, what percent of optimals have one of the long shot players like Agnew last night? Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers offhand. I can go look at our database and let you know later. I want to say it's somewhere around 15 to 20% based on salary and based on ownership. If you look at guys that are complete scrubs like Parker Washington, no offense to Parker Washington and his family, but Parker Washington, when he was 0.1% owned, that's a once a season type of deal. But these guys that are, 5 to 10%, that happens, 15 to 20% of the time on a showdown slate in the largest contest. Code Red says 3 years. I've not figured out what works for FanDuel's Showdown Small Field. Can't ever seem to win those. Yeah, check our daily plug, which has been up since today, and we have a very specific template for how to play FanDuel Small Field GPPs. Generally, it involves playing just one quarterback. That does change a bit when you have a rushing quarterback like Jalen Hurts, and he takes away a lot of opportunity from his teammates. It opens up more two quarterback potential lineups. In general, though, one quarterback is the way to go for FanDuel Small Field GPPs. Let's see here. Quez Watkins for a bomb. Go Lions. I like this. I like this thing you guys are doing where you're asking about players or talking about players and then repping the team that you root for immediately afterwards, even if it's unrelated. So let's keep that up. Let's see. Dot bets thought on tight ends tonight. Goddard goes up against Seattle's top 10 in yards given to tight end. Philly gives up the third most touchdown to tight ends in the league. Yeah, I think they'll be somewhat popular, right? Both guys over 20% projected ownership in Goddard and Noah Fant. Not necessarily sure it's a way to get different, but yeah, maybe a slight boost to those guys. Let's see. Jenna says, can you fade Hurts in large field and play Swift? Yeah, that's a great pivot, right? If you think there's a way that Hurts fails, it likely comes from Swift stealing a touchdown. Probably not on the 1 yard line, even though they get on the 1 yard seemingly more than any other team in NFL history. But if Swift busts a long one or gets one from outside the 5 yard line, that's how Hurts could fail. Also sick, maybe he plays a little under the weather. But yeah, I think that's a great way to think about Hurts failing. So good call there, Jenna. Sean says, do you think if Geno starts, Fant stop drops? Jesus, that's a tongue twister. Do you think if Geno starts, Fant's stock drops? I was basing on the lock to Fant going full Broncos country. Last time Fant was optimal, Geno was under center. So I don't think it matters too much given who is starting at quarterback. Do you like the receivers, Captain, because Geno doesn't run much? Yeah, and especially with the groin injury. But Geno's going to be low owned to captain if he starts. Again, if we're still waiting confirmation here, so let me know if you guys see something concrete outside the Roto World report. But yeah, Geno can certainly be optimal. A little bit cheaper, obviously, than Brown and Hurts. If he distributes the ball to multiple pass catchers, Geno can be optimal. Definitely a large field, maybe small field too, depending on how you build the rest of your lineup. But again, allows you to be a little bit more chalky in your flex spots since you'll have a low owned captain. Eric says, what do you think about fading Walker? Yeah, I personally, in my small field lineups tonight, am not playing Kenneth Walker. Just the split workload with Zach Charbonnet hasn't looked the same since the injury. And the coaching staff has all but told us they trust Charbonnet more in his vision and his actual running skills. Kenneth Walker obviously has the home run ability. That's why you would be playing him. We still project him over 20%, so not a low-owned play by any means, which is another reason that I'm not having much Kenneth Walker tonight. H-Town says, 2 minutes ago, still no official word yet on Geno, so thank you for that update. I appreciate you. We'll be here for 13 minutes or so, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Let's get these final questions in and continue to talk through. All right. So the field is going to build Philly heavy tonight, and that might lean even more Philly heavy given the uncertainty around the Seahawks quarterback situation. Think 5 Eagles in a lineup, 4 Eagles in a lineup. On FanDuel, 4 Eagles in one lineup, 3 Eagles in a lineup. So, if you want to get different, one way, obviously, we talk about this seemingly every showdown slate. If you want to get different, is playing 3+ Seattle players in a lineup. And even though I wasn't trying to accomplish that, I found myself looking at a lot of even small field GPP lineups that had 3 Seattle players in a lineup. You have the funnel players in Metcalf and Lockett. You have Charbonnet, who's a little cheap for his role. Kickers and defenses, Geno, Noah Fant, JSN. To me, it seems, despite what the field is doing, I actually like playing more Seattle balanced or heavy lineups because more guys can get the ball. On Philly's side, we know Hurts is going to throw and run. We know a vast majority of the targets are flowing through A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. Any scraps are likely going to Dallas Goedert. Outside of these full blowout onslaught lineups where you include kicker and or defense and or one of the running backs, to me, it doesn't seem like it's easy to get there. Easy to be optimal for Philly heavy lineups. So I think it's natural to play Seattle balance or Seattle heavy against what the field is doing. Okay, so Hop says the Roto World report has already changed it to no word of who will start. So we still got an hour. Someone will report it, right? I mean, it's not going to be an NBA or, for those of you who grind the niche sports like WNBA or League of Legends or, Euro basketball or something, right? Like, it's not going to be something we're not going to know. It's a national sport, so we'll find out. Just be flexible, and again, the pricing is similar enough that we can do what we need to do. So Dante says thoughts on kickers and defenses tonight. So yeah, kickers will be a little more popular than defenses we expect, and as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I think defenses are the best leverage plays on the board. If the weather has an impact, if both quarterbacks are impacted whatsoever, I mean, it's not like Hurts has been setting the world on fire. Defenses are a great way to get different tonight. Love them over kickers. Jordan says, how do you play kickers and defenses? Same team losing kicker. So it depends on large field versus small field. In large field, you can pretty much allow anything to happen with defense and kicker. The scoring is so random that you can allow them, if you're building 20 plus lineups and for large field GPPs, allow kickers and defenses basically in any settings, right? The only situation is you don't really want to one off a kicker or defense, right? So like 5 Eagles and Jason Myers, 5 Eagles and Seattle defense. That really doesn't work as often as it's played. In small field GPPs, you can be a little more conscious of how you play it. Maybe you pair the defense with your captain, pair the kicker with your captain, pair kickers and or defenses with the team's running back. But again, it's a little the scoring is so random on those. Really, what you're looking at is the ownership. How can I play if they're low owned? How can I get them in the lineup? Or if you expect the game to be super low scoring. Dante, great question. Lockett or overpriced Metcalf? Yeah. So despite our fantastic calls on Metcalf a couple weeks ago, despite Metcalf sending me to Arizona, despite him facing backup corner Darius Slay, he is technically overpriced based on his projection compared to Lockett. Lockett is underpriced. Metcalf is overpriced. As a result, we will see Lockett higher owned than Metcalf. Personally, I am playing more Lockett in my lineups tonight, but I will not fault anyone who wants to play a stud receiver with a high target share that's going to barely be 20-30% owned. That's a great way to win GPPs. And yeah, as Tricky is asking, is using Lockett or Metcalf at MVP a smart move? Yeah, low owned, right? Low owned MVPs have the ability to put up multiple touchdowns, have the ability to put up 100 plus yards, and they allow you to be a little chalkier, not fully chalky, right? But a little chalkier in your flex spots compared to if you played Hurts and you have to play at least 2 low-owned guys to get different. Lineups feel a lot better when you play one of those receivers at MVP or captain. Shout out Tom, who's following the new template. What do you consider small field? Go Seattle Supersonics. Love that. Small field, we look at, I mean, I generally say 200 players or less. You can probably extend that to 500 players or less. 1,000 is where it starts to get kind of murky, gray area. Large field, we consider mass multi-entry 20 max plus. But small field, really the ideal. And when we talk about small field strategies in our daily plug and in our content, we're mostly referring to the 200 players or less type of contests, which are a vast majority that are offered on both FanDuel and DraftKings. Joseph says, would you play Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, and Goddard in the same lineup? I think you could. Ideally, it's a Hurts MVP or captain lineup. If you play Smith or Brown at MVP or captain, you likely want them to get all the scoring. And if Goddard is optimal also at his price, because Goddard is 6,200 on DraftKings. If he was in the 5K range, I could think you could play both. I prefer, and again, if it's something that you can't do otherwise, right, just play it, it'll be fine. Small field is not as bad, but I would prefer to play just one of those guys without the tight end. Hopefully they get all the volume. All right, let's see. Wig. All right, let's get these final questions in. 7 minutes left. Again, Daily Plug is updated. Occupy models up with projected ownership, as is our lineup. And again, if you guys do see any concrete report, please let me know for the next 5 minutes or so. Wig says, do you think if Philly gets a decent lead, they pump the brakes and let the running game take over? Maybe. I mean, 18 points is a lot given how they have been playing. I think they would love to do that. Will they do it in a 4-point spread is the other question. Yeah, I think Swift would benefit the most in that scenario. But if you want to see it play out that way, you can certainly build your lineup like that. 6 says, let's play a game. If Geno is starting over lock, how much does that affect your captain or overall game script, if any? Really, I mean, lock slings it. I'm playing it the same way. Maybe you want to play a little more Eagles defense. But either way, there's arguments to be made. If Geno isn't fully healthy, Lock is a gunslinger. You could make the argument one way or the other. It's not affecting how I build too much. Dizzy says, how do you do out in the desert? Yeah, great question. We're actually going to do a recap show live stream tomorrow night, probably 8 p.m. Eastern or so. Moose and I will recap the live final experience. And someone else asked who won the $2.5 million. It was a guy with 2 entries, a very high volume player. I am PGM, I think his name is. I may have missaid it. Sorry. But yeah, not one of the max entries. Won the $2.5 million. So shout out to him. I finished 60th for 30K. Average result, so we will take it nonetheless, given I qualified so late and didn't spend a lot of money in it. So Bark says, would you play backup quarterbacks for a long shot or fade quarterbacks altogether because of the questionable tags? Yeah, if this was a scenario where the backup quarterback was 5K, you could consider it. So maybe for Philly, right? Let's look. So Mariota 6K. DraftKings is not really the best strategy. Both guys are 9K for Seattle, so you're not doing it there. If you look at FanDuel, let's see what it looks like over here. So Mariota, 13,500. You're not doing that. And then Drew Lock and Gino are the same price on FanDuel. So really, I would only do Mariota on DraftKings if you're playing 150 lineups and don't care about burning money. Really, the backups are too expensive, even with the news that we know. Robbie's asking about Hishbu. No, I talked to friends of Hishbu. It sounds like he did not have a great go of it. So sorry to Hishbu if you are somehow watching this for some reason. Note, I'm in the chat, says Seahawks GM John Schneider declines on radio to say who will start at quarterback. We got 54 minutes to figure this out, as do we. So be flexible. As we get word, just swap. Again, it's super easy with the salary tonight. So one way that whoever start, just play whoever's starting. Let's see. Double quarterback for FanDuel cash. Yeah, normally that is the play, Dwayne, and certainly you can do so tonight. We hit it at the top of the show, so make sure you rewind back if you want to check that out. Which running backs are ideal for this contest tonight? Not many, Luis. I prefer the cheaper guys, specifically Charbonnet. I have the most exposure to Zach Charbonnet in my lineups tonight. Not playing Swift and Walker as much, and maybe mixing in Gainwell a little bit, just based on the workload splits. Bill says, I'm new to your channel. Have you ever won the Millie? If anyone in the chat wants to let Bill know. But yes, indeed, I have in Showdown. So not saying that's the reason you should definitely listen to me because anyone can win it. But winning a solo Showdown Millie is extremely difficult to do. Plus, I've had some other success along the way. Let's see. Sambino is asking about Grant Calcaterra. Man, we're getting into that part of the show where it's about time to check out. Grant Calcaterra has scored exactly 0 points all season. I will not be playing Grant Calcaterra tonight. Sorry, Sambino. And a great point here from Evil. Who's to say the Eagles defense don't collapse with a new coaching change? Matt Patricia taking over. Eagles defense has already kind of collapsed, I think most would say. So the question is always, how much worse can it be? And if you have to ask that question, the truth is it can be worse. So yeah, it's possible with Matt Patricia running the sticks now for Philly's defense. It could be worse, especially missing a couple of key defenders. I don't think there's anything saying that they could be worse. So no, definitely sharp there. And just because they could be worse doesn't mean we don't want to play them in DFS. Geno could be worse. They could get a pick six, fumbles. So yeah, if anything, I would encourage playing more Seattle players if we think the new coaching change hurts their defense. But it could help too, right? I'm not saying it will with Patricia, but we just don't know how that's going to impact truthfully. David says, don't know who to put captain. That's the real question. Yeah, it's difficult. I'm mixing it up tonight for the most part. The safest option is Hurts. Lockett is underpriced. It allows you to fit in a lot of great lineups. When I've used all the rules that I use for Showdown, most of which are laid out in our daily plug and in our Showdown strategy guide on our site, and just tweaked a little bit based on injury news, I was getting a lot of Lockett lineups toward the top, a lot of Hurts lineups towards the top, A.J. Brown lineups. Those are the three I think I would focus on. All right, Jenna, if I'm playing 4-2 Seattle, would Swift or Seattle receiver be better in the captain's spot? I would say receiver. Typically, running back captains are heavier towards that team. So if you play Swift, generally the rest of the lineup is more Philly heavy, unless it's a Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler type of guy who commands a huge role in both the passing and the run game. So if you're going 4-2 Seattle, I would prefer to play the Seattle receiver at captain. All right, so Bob Condata, who is a trusted Seattle beat reporter, according to Notem, says that Locke is working with starting center Evan Brown as Mannion is working with the backup center. Maybe that means Locke is starting. Again, let's just be flexible. Good report there, Notem. Thank you for that. One lineup to win it all. Who you got at captain? I'll say Tyler Lockett tonight. Gross says there's no such thing as a Millie Showdown. Grow, I'm sorry you were misinformed. There is. Thoughts on kickers tonight from EGS? Yeah, the rain makes the potential for rain makes it a little difficult, but every time I say that, they end up making multiple field goals. I mean, look at Tucker last night in the not the greatest conditions. they're a little bit too highly owned for me, right around that 20% mark. If you're playing multiple lineups, you mix them in. If you're playing just one lineup, I don't think I would use a kicker. I prefer the defenses tonight, especially if they're going to be lower owned. All right, I think that covers it. 7:30. Thank you for all the questions. Thank you all for watching. I know you have the choice of shows to watch before the games start. We appreciate you tuning in with us. Still have 45 minutes or so. Let's keep an eye on this news. I keep saying it, but it's going to be important. It sounds like the latest report means a lock is going to start. We'll see how that goes. And if Sean Mannion is working with the backup center, that likely means Geno is emergency only, which would give us a lot more faith in playing lock in DFS if that is the case. So if Geno is the third quarterback, Drew Lock becomes a lot safer in DFS. All right, if you like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel. So we'll do the showdown video on Thursday here. It will likely be a pre-recorded video like usual. However, we have the Saturday 3-game slate. Or no, 2-game slate. I think it's 2-game. Either way, Jack and I will do a video for that. We'll probably record that Friday. Monday, on Christmas Day, we have a 3-game showdown slate. There will be a video for it. I don't know when or how. I will sneak away from the family at some point, and we'll get a video out for you on Christmas. Subscribing to the channel is the best way to get notified when this video will go live. Any of our videos go live, so if you're not already, make sure you are subscribed. It's free to do so here on YouTube. Just click the red subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up if you like the video. Helps the channel out. Lets us know that you want us to do more of this content. Any questions? It's too late to comment. Join our Discord server, occupyfantasy.com/Discord. Chat up with us, staff, other members of the community. Ask questions and sweat out the games with us. Thank you for listening, and good luck in tonight's Seahawks and Eagles showdown slate.